More now in tonight's top story, what Christine Blasey Ford's legal team wants as conditions for her testimony against Brett Kavanaugh. They want Thursday as the date, not to have Judge Kavanaugh in the room with her at the same time, and questioning by senators, not outside counsel. Of course, the question hanging over all of this will be about credibility and believability. Randy Kay spoke with a group of Republican women in Florida.
A show of hands, how many of you believe Judge Kavanaugh when he says this didn't happen?
I believe him.
Believe him too.
I do believe him. I believe him.
How can we believe the word of a woman of something that happened 36 years ago when this guy has an impeccable reputation? There was nobody that has spoken ill will about him. Everyone that speaks about him, this guy's an altar boy, a scout. He's, because one woman made an allegation. Sorry, I don't buy it.
But in the grand scheme of things, my goodness, there was no intercourse. There was maybe a touch.
Right.
Can we really? 36 years later, she's still stuck on that? Had it happened?
I mean, we're talking about a 15-year-old girl, which I respect. I'm a woman, I respect. And we're talking about a 17-year-old boy in high school with testosterone running high. Tell me what boy hasn't done this in high school? Please, I would like to know.
Why would she come forward if this wasn't true? Because it has basically destroyed her family. She's had to move, she's gone undercover, she's gotten death threats. So if she's lying, why come forward?
She's also destroying his life, his wife's lives, his children's lives, his career. I mean, why didn't she come out sooner if she's telling the truth?
Why didn't she come out when he was going into the Bush White House? Why didn't she come out when he's been a federal judge for over a decade?
Why not have a thorough investigation instead of just the two of them, he said, she said?
Because it doesn't matter. It does not matter what everyone else has to say.
This is what happened, though, with Clarence Thomas and Anita Hill. The FBI investigated. It took 3 days. Done. Why not now?
Well, this is not the same. This is a high school kid. I mean, it's not Anita Hill story.
Does something that allegedly happened some 30-plus years ago matter today?
You can't judge the character of a man based on what he did at 17.
And I would hate to think that 30, 40 years later, somebody's going to destroy your life because somewhere at some party, it's not right, but maybe you touch somebody the way you were not supposed to.
And who brought the alcohol for these kids?
As women, though, do you have some sympathy for her, for what she's going through?
No, I have no sympathy. And perhaps maybe at that moment she liked him, and maybe he didn't pay attention to her afterwards, and he went out with another girl, and she got bitter, or whatever the situation is. They're kids.
If it is true, would it be okay with you if he became a justice on the Supreme Court?
As long as that's an isolated incident, yes.
He was 17. He was not even an adult. And we all make mistakes at 17. I believe in a second chance.
I'd be more than okay with him being Supreme Court judge.
If the person made a mistake and they've moved on and they have been a good human being, who are we to judge?
Well, joining me now for perspective, CNN political analyst and USA Today columnist Kirsten Powers, also Carrie Severino, Chief Counsel and Policy Director of the Judicial Crisis Network, which supports the Kavanaugh nomination. Kirsten, I'm wondering what you make of what you heard from that group of women who believe Judge Kavanaugh.
Well, I mean, I just want to say this idea that any 17-year-old, has done this is just completely incorrect. It's not. I went to high school. I actually went to a private Jesuit high school. It wasn't all boys the way Georgetown Prep was. It was co-ed. But, this was not the way the boys that I went to high school behaved, and it's not normal behavior. So we have to be very careful about saying that, especially to teenagers today. We don't want them to think that this is normal behavior for teenage boys. I do agree that you don't want to hold a person to everything they've done as a teenager, and that people absolutely can do bad things when they're teenagers and turn into great members of society. I don't question that at all. But if this happened, I do think that it's not, the Supreme Court is such a rarefied position to be a Supreme Court justice in this society, and you are being a judge on the highest court in the land, and you are held to a different standard than other people are. So I think you can both say that, yes, someone can make a mistake when they're 17 years old, and it doesn't have to haunt them for the rest of their life, and also say, but, they probably shouldn't be on the Supreme Court.
Carrie, I mean, what do you make of the woman who said, tell me what boy hasn't done this in high school? Did that concern you?
It is a little concerning. I fear it is all too common. I mean, I have friends who've had similar experiences happen to them, but I still don't think, I mean, if there was attempted rape going on here, that obviously is something that should be taken very seriously and not discounted simply because it's old. That said, I think all the evidence is pointing to the fact that Brett Kavanaugh was not involved here. I mean, what the experience she describes is horrible. But I think we're seeing more and more people coming saying, you know, the people that have been identified there so far. We had another one, PJ Smith, who said, I was identified as being at that party, and I could tell you, I was never at a party like that with Brett Kavanaugh. This is not like what I knew him to be. So that, you know, and of course you couple that with all of the dozens of women who said they knew him at the time. It doesn't add up with him. His repeated and adamant and very confident denial saying this was not me. I think it's you know, the evidence points to the fact that it actually wasn't.
You know, Kirsten, one of the arguments that some of the women that Randy talked to made is that why now? Why didn't she come forward with this earlier? Brett Kavanaugh has been, you know, in the public eye. He's gone through confirmation hearings and had background investigations in the past.
Yeah, it's distressing to me to hear people saying that after what we've gone through with Me Too, because I feel like this issue has been covered so thoroughly that this is very standard for women who have been victimized through, you know, sexual trauma and sexual harassment, for that matter, that they feel ashamed, they feel like something's wrong with them, they feel that maybe they caused it, they fear they won't be believed, they fear that they'll be ostracized if they come out, and so there's a lot of fear involved, and so there's a lot of good reasons actually to not bring it up. And we have to remember that especially during this era, it just was absolutely not an environment where a woman or a girl would feel like she could bring this up and be heard and taken seriously.
Carrie, I'm wondering what you make of the reporting tonight that we're hearing that Professor Ford does not want an outside counsel by the Republicans to be the female outside counsel to be the person questioning her, or even a staff counsel, that she wants the questions to come from senators. Do you see that as reasonable? Do you see that as political?
You know, I'm not sure what the logic is. There are several of those we just had reports of all the different demands she's making. That one I'm not sure I understand, because if you've watched those hearings previously, and frankly any confirmation hearing, having the senators do it means you don't have a continuous line of questioning. You've got people overlapping. It's very hard to follow. Frankly, the senators aren't very good questioners, and I think some people have suggested, well, it's going to be harder questioning from a lawyer. I'm not sure that's clear. We saw some very aggressive questioning at the Kavanaugh hearing recently. I liked the idea, and I think the first I saw of it was Senator Collins suggesting it a couple days ago, of saying, let's have her lawyers question Kavanaugh, and let's have Kavanaugh's lawyers question her. And I think that would probably provide a more coherent line of talented questioners. But I do know that Chairman Grassley has tried to be as accommodating as possible of all of her requests, and he's offered so many different ways to do this hearing, whether it's confidential, whether it's public, whether it's in California or in D.C. or with cameras, without. So I'm sure they will make every effort to be as accommodating as they can.
Got to go here. Kirsten Powers, thank you. Carrie Severino as well.